Good weekend, everyone. Welcome to the May update for the Trainz New Era BNSF HO scale Chilli sub. We'll be taking a look at some progress for the month, and as always, some train run-bys, and trying something a little different this month with some product reviews, I guess you can call it, in terms of some new payware releases that are available for those of you who consider whether or not to buy from some of the payware providers. We'll go over some of the things I've recently kind of picked up to see how they look in the game. So as always, we start on the railroad eastern edge of the layout here, looking directly at the Proviso staging yard directly in front of us, with the UP intermodal train and a BNSF merchandise train. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, how is a BNSF merchandise train at Proviso? So the staging yard is actually Proviso plus the IHB. So from a realism standpoint, this is supposed to be the Blue Island to Galesburg merchandise train. It's one of the few merchandise trains, general freights, that I model here on the Chilli sub in the operating plan that I've developed. And then to the right, up here to the top, we have our Corwith staging yard, where it's part of this session, no originating trains in the session I'm building right now. No work yet on the pet project over there on the Chicago side, the Chicago sub, head towards Aurora, and then over the Galesburg staging yard, over the entrance to the layout from the Corwith side, and then into our urban Chicago scene. So as a reminder, the line in the foreground is the BRC main, and the line in the background is the lead from that IHB Proviso staging yard. I haven't done really any additional detailing here, and as we swing around, we've kind of added a paper industry, which I really like how this came together in terms of the complexity of the switching, and just kind of how the building's laid out. I mean, playing in this small space in an HO scale railroad, it's you just never know if you're going to be able to find the right buildings to match for the space. So kind of able to put together some stuff from Jointed Rail and Dave Snow, and from the download station in general, to kind of develop this little paper setup with inbound chemicals and outbound boxcars for finished products. The BRC main wraps around the backside of the facility. We have a small electric generating plant here, and small in terms of the amount of coal that's used. Just a couple cars in there that'll be used in single car switching service. And then as we continue south on the BRC main, we come to one of my favorite scenes, which is Nerska Tower. And here in Nerska, no real changes. I think this is more or less one of the few finalized areas of the layouts where I won't be adding any additional details. And so we're actually going to jump straight across and cheat here to another peninsula, which is where the majority of the work's been done in May. So coming into a steel facility here at Stronghurst, and both coiled steel there on the ground and using open top gondolas as well as covered coil shields. In the modeled version, there's actually a backdrop here that runs right down the middle of the peninsula, and to kind of capture more open field and to capture kind of some of the wide open kind of field scenes that exist in the prototype, I just decided to leave this wide open. So you can see there's no backdrop down the middle, and the line doubles back on itself from right to left, heading up the grade on the left-hand side towards Galesburg. So just kind of put a field here. I had a lot of open space to work with, and like I said, just wanted to put a little more agriculture down. We've got a field divider and then a passing siding here in Williamsfield. A couple industries, and then an Amtrak station. So for those of you familiar with prototype operations, Amtrak doesn't, by plan today, run on the Chilli sub. And so what I've done here, and I'm not creative by nature, is actually allow whoever downloads this in the future, kind of the user community, to decide if they want to use the station or not. And so what we've done is we've actually added in multiple layers. So as you can see here, we've got a lot of debris, a lot of graffiti, and just kind of a general sense of it being out of use. Well, in the layers area, what you can do is you can turn on the 90s layer, turn off the modern layer, and now I've got a clean station with people, with vehicles, and with no graffiti. So, like I said, just kind of depends on if you want to run this route as if it's the 90s or if it's modern day, but that'll be included. So those of you who end up downloading the route at some point later this summer, that's just a little thing I put in because you never know how people want to operate. So, like I said, we're here in Williamsfield. And in Williamsfield, we got a couple industries, the smaller of which is right back here, which is hammer mill paper. And so paper and steel are a common theme here on the layout. And then as we head east back towards Chicago, we actually have the lead into the Williamsfield facility for power, that is. So this is an Illinois Edison facility that Bruce put in Williamsfield. And this is an area in the last update which wasn't scenic at all. So I've added some fill or bad order kind of coal hoppers just sitting there, and we've added a gate, a derail, and then the actual initial scenery for the area. So we have vehicles, and since I have no idea how a power grid's laid out, just put a bunch of transformers and things down just to keep the scene kind of busy. I looked at some aerial photos of power plants around the country that are served by rail to get an idea of just how the look and feel is, and I just want a lot of power lines, a lot of boxes. And then we have a super elevated curve here around the outside, and then the end of the siding here at East Williamsfield. One of the things I've done to just kind of capture the era that's going on in Chillicothe over the last few years is that the movement out of these searchlight signals to a more modern PTC compatible signal setup. So what I've done here is I got some invisible track running parallel to the main, and I just stuck a signal bridge with some signal heads on it and then made them approach lit. And since no trains will ever touch the invisible track, they just stay off. And then we've got the same thing down here, as you commonly see before signal cutover. The newer signals off to the side, not facing the right-of-way is to not confuse any of the crews, and the end of the siding. This lead here to the left will be going to a massive ADM facility here, which I picked this up off jointed rail and just put a bunch of hoppers in here for now. Haven't tried to scenic it. I'm trying to make sure I understand how to serve it in terms of an industry before I put any scenery down, as the track layout may change. But the single track continues east here towards Elstein to yet another steel customer. And then around the curve, this is the only area that really hasn't been touched at all in terms of scenery. We've got some intermediate signals, and then if you'll remember from the last video, over into West Chillicothe and then over the river. I've toyed after operating this a lot this month, and I spend a lot more time operating than I do building. Really considering extending some of the passing sidings and making an area that's continuous double track. And I'm really thinking of making that happen here between Williamsfield and Chillicothe. So we've got double track already over the bridge, and what it'll allow for is just a lot more train movement. I like operating a lot of trains in a session, especially trying to model something that sees the volume of trains that the Chillicothe sub does a day, and just trying to capture, let's see, just a little more train movement at track speed, which I have set right now at about 35 miles an hour. Something that I may kind of take a step back and consider doing here in June. As we head back west towards Williamsfield, the town isn't this developed in real life, but I really wanted to use these jointed rail downtown buildings. So we've created a little downtown scene here. I'm only going to focus on it because in a lot of the session videos we won't, because we'll be trackside. But we've got pedestrian crosswalks, fire lanes, fire hydrants, benches for local residents, etc. Still a lot of detailing to do here. But one of the things I like is that the line doubles back on itself. So you can be back at the grade crossing behind us, look across and see train movement on both sides of town. With this line here being the lead up to Galesburg itself, which is also single track. So I talked about potentially going double track on the one side between Williamsfield and Chillicothe, also considering doing it here from Williamsfield up to Galesburg. So one or the other will happen. We've got an intermediate signal here already, but it's really tight against the fascia, and having a lot of issues with dig holes and their effect on the terrain and the ability to place objects on it. So we'll be doing double track on one of the sections, and I guess just stay tuned to figure out what we decide to do. But you can see this is milepost 174 on the Chilli sub. I found a BNSF timetable just to get the milepost correct, and then also realized Stronghurst and the prototype is after Galesburg. So I'll just have to come up with a generic milepost for Stronghurst, which was that steel customer up and to the left behind the tree line. So we've got a small grain customer here on the top side, and this is really just kind of a lead up into Galesburg. And we've touched on Galesburg a little bit. Head over here, and right now we're set up for the session. So what we have, as you all see later, is we have a container train from Long Beach to the NS at Landers with an NS SD70M. That's a railroad, that's an SRS, Trainz, sorry, payware product. And with the Santa Fe -9 and trail. We've got our farm scene here at Galesburg, and then our lead into a small industrial yard. So this SD40-2 here is actually a local that'll show up at the end of the session to go down and serve that steel customer. That's all it does. Because of the way the switches are lined up, it's a double-ended local in terms of you'll have the SD40 on this end and then the B40-8W on the other side. With that Jeep 38 still serving local customers here and then in downtown Galesburg. So not a whole lot here has changed. Like I said, just kind of initial details everywhere, which is that one area back by Edison, the only thing that really hasn't been done. So I'm really looking forward to getting this out at some point this summer. Certainly won't be in June or July, but maybe August or around Labor Day. So in terms of a route overview, those are the only major changes we've done outside of small track work changes. The other thing I'm going to highlight here as we approach the fuel pad at Junction Yard is these just released this weekend. They are Railroad Mods Canada AC44s from CSX. You'll see them in action going along the BRC to pick up an ethanol train off the CP, but they are a really nice product and full of antenna farms, various skins. And if anyone's interested, just let me know in the comments and I'll make a special video just to walk through all the details you can mess with the locomotives. But they are a really nice product from Adamovich, and my second purchase from Railroad Mods, the other being the CN C44 you'll see in the session, which is a beautiful product as well, full of radio chatter and a lot of other details that you don't find on just any payware model. So that's where we are with the route update. We'll head into the session, and as always, any comments, things you want to see, things you want to know more about, please post them in the comments section. I keep up with them pretty well throughout the day, and hope everyone had a safe weekend.